joining me. I'm Paul Wilson, and this is Diesel Performance Podcast. Today, we're going to be pulling an episode out of our back catalog that's going to fit in perfectly to this whole fuel topic we've been discussing lately. Previously, last year, we were able to talk with Randy Harkema from Exergy Performance about the new fuel additive line that Exergy released. Basically, I had one simple question. Is this snake oil or is this science? Stick around and find out. Randy Harkema, how the hell are you?
Hey, not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man.
It's cold. It's cold here. What's the temperature? What's it like by you, Randy?
It was just a little bit above 10. I think about 12 degrees this morning as I came to work.
All right. Well, yeah, we're not where Randy is, right? Where Exergy is and where we're at. We're not very far away, so I'm sure we have some of the same type of weather, but that's what it was like here.
Yeah,
so
yeah. That
it's
Midwest
struggle bus, man. It's tough right now.
That Midwest winter, and that's really what inspired us to have you on today, Randy, is that Midwest weather and dealing with cold weather and all of the things that brings up with our diesels that Chris and I drive. Guys, we know we've been alluding to it for a while. We've done some testing with the Exergy fuel additive. But when this came up, we sat down and we said, hey, Chris, how much do you know about fuel additive?
Yeah, nothing.
And we all know I don't know shit. So
true.
So we thought we would have the smartest guy we know come on and talk a little bit about fuel additive. I think on the show I may have been previously quoted as saying it's mostly snake oil.
Many times.
I think Randy, you might fall on the side that you really believe in the science behind fuel additive, or at least high quality fuel additive.
Yeah, correct. Not a question about that. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, let's dive right in at the top. Randy, tell us how you got your start in diesel performance.
So back on the farm, we had an underground storage tank, and it had a hand crank on it. And in order to fill all the equipment, the way my uncles, my grandpa, and everybody ran things, they'd park tractors around that pump, and it was the little kids, so mine as I was growing up, job then to fill them up, crank all that fuel up out of the tank into the tractors. And that took hours, especially if they backed the combine up. Anyway, so one day, my actually great-grandpa pulls up in a pickup and told me to fill it up. And I said, you sure about this? I kind of thought the guy had lost his mind a little bit. It was a 5.7. It was 1979. And that was, I think, about the first time that a diesel engine had been put in a full-size pickup. So from there, I thought, that's odd, and I kind of followed along. Of course, that engine had a torrid history, but when it ran, I believe they were getting mid-20s for mileage at the time, which was absolutely phenomenal for a full-size pickup. Anyway, that was the beginning of the story.
Obviously, you have some experience with developing some fuel additive, but I want to just kind of talk in general. What testing can you do on fuel additive besides throwing it in my tank and saying, okay, drive the same as you did last week?
All right. There are several different tests that can be done, and it all kind of depends on how many features you're trying to work into your additive. As we went into developing this one, our main goal was trying to come up with an additive that was going to make the fuel system last longer. To do that, it was going to need to address quite a few different things, and the one that we concentrated on the most was lubricity.
Okay. And I would say of anyone that we could have on the show, Randy has a leg to stand on, being owner of Exergy Performance, right? So they have injectors, modified injectors. We've been using them for years. So you want a product that's going to help make those injectors live and last longer.
Yeah.
Right? So now when you guys started actually getting into this testing, you guys have all the test benches, you guys get injectors that guys have ran in trucks from, for a few years, miles, so on and so forth. So what does that look like, right? When you're in the lab and you're putting this formula together, how do you go into a controlled testing environment? What does that look like?
We get that question fairly often, maybe from a different perspective, and that is people ask, how many miles will my fuel system last now that it has an additive?
Right.
And to actually answer that question, we'd have to run essentially a clone of that truck in the exact same application. In other words, whatever it was doing, whether that's daily driving, towing, what have you, fuel at the same stations, and we'd have to have 6 of those. We'd have to do 3 with additive, 3 without, and basically run all of them to the end of their life to start to be able to estimate, okay, your fuel system will last X number of miles longer.
Wait a minute. Can I just recap that? Can I just recap that test? All you need is just 6 identical trucks, and then to randomly select 3 of them and not let the drivers know, and always use additive on every single fill up for the entire life of the truck. So I don't know, 250 to 500,000 miles, and then 2 trucks just have to go do the exact same job every single day. So every single mile, 2 of them go at a time. So it just sounds like we need 3 sets of best friends. I don't get it. What's the problem? I'm just joking, of course. That is what randomized testing looks like. Like, if people want that real world application, like you said, it's just not practical. There's no way that that anybody would be able to put that together. What can you do to kind of help you know that, hey, like, this is an additive that is going to help with longevity, even if it's not that perfect? You know, here's how many more miles additive will help with. Like, how do you know your additive is going to help with longevity at all?
Correct. So to try to measure lubricity, there's been standardized tests that have been developed. The idea is then anyone can have somewhat of an apples-to-apples comparison between additives and from today to 5 years from now, and have something that they can compare against. So it's a controlled test. It's done in a lab. You ideally need to run, if you're going to do a comparison, you need to start with the same base stock for that whole comparison, and then the apples to apples is only valid for that run, that amount of fuel that you bought for that base stock. Change the base stock, the whole relative comparison is going to change again. So it's not easy, but that's about as close as we can get at the moment.
Okay. So there's definitely no secret that the quality of fuel over the years has definitely dropped. Okay, with the additives and things that the oil companies do add into the fuel. What would you say to someone that questions? Well, I can just run ATF or 2-stroke oil to add lubricity to the existing fuel compared to additive that you would buy off the shelf.
All right, we've tested both of those actually, and in regard to lubricity, because they're both oil based. So the idea there is that by adding them, you're going to add some lubricity. It turns out that 2-stroke, and the rough ratio that we chose was about a quart to an average tank. It came out to be about 1 to 200 parts, I believe. And what we found is that 2-stroke, you got a little bit of an increase in lubricity, not much. ATF actually did a respectable job, I'll say, in that it made a significant improvement in the lubricity of the fuel. However, a quality additive was significantly less, or had significantly better, I'll say, scores than that. So, long story short, you could put those in, and especially with ATF, you probably will make an improvement in lubricity, but then that's all you're doing. You're not treating the other aspects of some of the deficiencies that are in diesel fuel that's ready for sale.
Okay.
I love the first guy who put transmission fluid in his tank.
Probably was an LV7 owner, had white smoke out the tailpipe.
It was you. It was a 98.5 Cummins, 100% with an S300. That's like, I want to get 30 miles to the gallon.
I've never ever done that, but it's definitely the LV7 guy. It's definitely the LV7 guy.
What? I always love the first guy to try it. Like the 2-stroke oil, I almost get it. Yep. Because if you're pre-emissions and you're like, well, I don't give a shit, like, run it.
Well,
I could see the logic to get you there. But the transmission fluid, did it start as a mistake?
But here's the thing, though. These guys that are adding those lubricants, okay, like, this is a different clientele, different person than someone that believes in additives. But these are guys adding these into the fuel system after the injectors already have 150, 200 rounds.
Yes.
They're trying to Band-Aid or get the injector to last a little longer.
I dig it.
Where additive isn't going to Band-Aid that, right? It's not. But the idea, from what I'm gathering so far, is it's a cheap insurance to add to the fuel to help with lubricity, help with boosting cetane ratings, and just help overall with the impurities of what fuel you have access to today.
All right, well, we're going to dig in because I know all the words you used, Chris, but I don't know if I have a great handle on what all those things actually are in the real world.
You're right.
First thing I wanted to hit you on, though, Randy, lubricity. Okay, we're talking about lubricity. I understand high-quality additive. It sounds like it's going to outpace any ATF or two-stroke oil that guys are going to DIY into their tank. I love that.
Correct.
Why do I care about lubricity? Yep. Is lubricity just mean that my injectors are going to have less wear and tear on them because I'm running additive?
Basically, yes. The idea is that with increased lubricity, it's just like having essentially a better oil in your engine. The diesel fuel system components need lubricity to stay alive. As we were talking about earlier, over the years, the amount of lubricity in the fuel has decreased. So we need to ideally put that back in somehow. And in addition to that, the latest common rail fuel systems are even higher pressure than obviously the mechanical ones, and even the earlier common rails. They keep going up in pressure. To generate that pressure, to hold that pressure, to be able to switch that pressure on and off for an injection event, all takes higher contact stress/forces on the internal components. So lubricity gets even more important. It becomes a higher sensitivity. The components are more highly sensitive to reduced lubricity than they were before.
Okay, I get that. I think I understand that.
Yeah.
You with it, Chris?
I'm about it. Yeah, I'm right there.
All right.
So more lubricity, less wear on those parts. Even the parts that are just doing the switching, like the valves and the valve seats. We see on the good used injector mods that we do, for example, we'll see injectors with 120,000 miles on them. They look really good yet, and typically we can't work with a set that high because typically it's just too far gone. It's not worth putting the money into. But every now and then one will come along where a guy really wants to give us to give it a try. So we do the baseline testing. Sure enough, they test really good, and we'll call them back and say, "Hey, you won the lottery today," and and he'll say, "Yeah, I've been using such and such since I bought the truck." And, oh, okay, all right, we can see that. It makes sense. The deposits are down, the wear and tear is down. Seem to go together.
I kind of like that approach of saying, like, hey, we've been around injectors, injector repairs, injector rebuilds for the history of the company. And there seems to be this continuing theme of, like, hey, guys who are using high-quality additive are having better results when we're going to baseline these. And then you said, okay, well, let's take a scientific approach to figuring out what's a really great additive. Now, Chris, we deal with a lot of testing over here at Duramax Tuner. Right. L5P Turbo, I know we've been telling people we've been testing for 2 years. Honestly, we've been making media for 2 years, which means testing is probably legit been 3, maybe 3.5 years that we've been working on that turbocharger. Yeah. It's been through an unnumbered amount of revisions to get it into a final production stage, right? So Chris and I have this, like, behind-the-scenes kind of understanding of what this looks like. In your experience, how many different compounds do you guys go through and test? Because with a turbo, it's more about, like, well, we have the idea, let's shave this part this way or manipulate this that way. But with chemicals, I don't know. I just imagine like the Mad Hatter mixing potions, right? Yeah. Right? It's like, they give it a pinch more salt,
Yeah, a little bit of history. So we started actually about 5 years ago, and that was kind of born out of people calling and asking, okay, what do you recommend? Well, we really haven't looked into this to give an honest, we know this to be the best type of answer our recommendation. And so we started looking into it and tried to find companies that had published results. And if they weren't published, okay, we'd call them and say, hey, can you give us the data and whatnot? And they'd say, no, we not available, or really haven't done it. So it kind of bumped along for a while in that we weren't having success finding someone to really recommend. And we were thinking too, okay, given the number of inquiries we were getting, if we did find someone that kind of checked all the boxes, we'd rebrand what they had. But after about 2 years of that, we kind of gave up and said, okay, we're going to do our own. So it started about 3 years ago in earnest. We're mechanical engineers here. We do work with fuel systems every day, but we're not chemists. Of course, we've had enough chemistry to be able to communicate with chemists, but that's not our mainstay. So we did partner up with a chemist and also a tribologist. That's somebody that studies the effects of lubrication and friction and the relative wear of surfaces. And started with components, I'll say chemical components that were available to use. And as we ran off different tests and tried to compare ourselves against other additives, we couldn't get it to where, okay, we had something that addressed all these areas and still had the best lubricity available. And what we wound up having to do after quite a few iterations, because, okay, you try one, that didn't quite work. Well, maybe if we change up the mixture rate, we put more of the component that added the lubricity in it, maybe we'll get there with that. And that wouldn't work. And okay, maybe we did hit our target, but the cost got too high. So then we have to back up again. Anyway, through all of this, we wound up having to find chemicals to work with that weren't available on the for blending, at least when we started. We kind of there were new releases as the process went along. So long story short, what we came up with in the end is unique to the Exergy additive. It's not a rebrand. Contains something that wasn't available 3 years ago. So it's a modern, updated product. It's not a rehash of what's been out there before.
Is it tiger blood?
That's one of the reasons why.
You have to tell us if it's tiger's blood. No Charlie Sheen. No Charlie Sheen fans. No?
So how many versions would you say before you were able to put a ship it, send it formula together? How many formulas do you think you guys went through?
I didn't keep track after.
Okay.
we thought it was going to be really easy, to be honest. And after like the first 8 months, okay, this isn't going to be easy. But I kind of kept at it, and you get to a point where, okay, it's just kind of frustrating, and you try not to think about how many you've tried. So honestly, I lost track. I don't know. So you have to go back and add it up.
Okay. So now, we've kind of gone through the back end of the project, who you had to group in for something like this, experts in certain fields. We, again, know your expertise in your field. What does this additive do? We've talked about the lubricity. With today's standards in fuel, fuel seems to be a little bit more watered down. We run, different types of lift pumps to help keep water out of the system. Does additive help with water separation or corrosion protection in the fuel itself?
Yeah, not all additives do, but yes, ours does. There's a couple others on the market that address it as well. But yes, this additive has a component in it that helps facilitate the separation of water.
Okay. Wait. How much water is in fuel? Because I've seen water sit on top of fuel that it separates from each other. So how much water is in your diesel fuel?
I mean, it depends on where you go and the quality of that station, I would assume.
Randy, do the rates vary widely? Is it a pretty narrow window of what's allotted in the U.S.?
To be honest, I'd have to go back and look at some studies to be able to answer that question completely. I can say that it's more prevalent now than it has been in the past, due to a couple different factors. One being the ultra-low sulfur standard. I know it's been around for a decade, but in order to achieve that, there's a water treatment of the fuel to strip that sulfur out, and it's quite possible that some of it can get left in the fuel. Also, through the distribution network, pipelines, trucks, things like that, they carry more than just diesel fuel. They carry lots of other components. They sometimes have a high water content. That gets left behind. The blending of biodiesel into the standard diesel that's ready for sale. Biodiesel has a little bit more propensity than diesel itself to absorb water. So all of it leads to a higher water risk than in the past. The exact percent that you'd find typically in a ready-to-sell diesel fuel, I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Sure. So Tesla gets self-driving cars and diesel trucks get more water in the fuel. Awesome. Thanks.
So with the additive, right? So I personally I have a couple local stations to me where they actually sell straight number 2. They don't actually sell biodiesel.
No bioblend?
No bioblend. I drive out of my way to this, this station.
Rare.
The additive is going to be more productive than what it would be if I was getting pump diesel from a bio station or a bio tank, correct?
More productive.
That might have been the wrong term, but the effect of the additive is going to be based off of the quality of fuel to start with. If I'm working with a better quality of fuel, the additive is going to be that much better for the vehicle.
Interesting. I like that.
It'll get the fuel to an overall higher level or higher quality. Yes. Okay. Yeah. No question about that. And you're right. You kind of stepped on another topic, and that is the effect of any additive is a bit dependent on the base crude that the fuel was made from. To be honest, the better the crude that it was made from, the less gain you'll get from the additive. In other words, there just isn't that much space left. The fuel that's made very poor, well, I shouldn't say very poorly, with less quality, so it comes from a lower grade of crude, will have a bigger increase in all of these areas once you add an additive to it.
I get that. Okay. So there's a ceiling. Okay, it's not a magic cure-all, right? Fuel additive. Yeah. It will optimize what you have. So if you start off with better grade fuel, sure, you're going to get to that ceiling quicker, right? Yeah. So it won't be as dramatic of a difference from before and after. But if you start off and you're running crap fuel, like I probably am, then
cheap's never good.
Get to that. Yep. Never mind. We're gonna pass on that joke, Chris. Yeah. Okay. So I got you. Okay. So the difference of where you started, where your baseline is, and where the ceiling is just a bigger gain. Yeah. I like that. Okay, that makes sense to me.
I gotta, as we're talking about all this, everything that we've been discussing is based off of longevity, lubricity. What am I expecting here? Can we see gains in power? Like, is there anything that we can actually see improve power-wise?
You know, Chris, you hit on this earlier. You said cetane, and I'm going to be honest, listeners. I've thrown cetane around as though I know what it is.
Yeah.
But it's just magic juice that they put into stuff.
You think so?
I have no idea what cetane is.
Well, let's have Randy fact check you on this. How about that?
Randy, can you break it down for us?
Okay, sure. So cetane is actually the measure. I could get into the test of how it's measured, but it's a measure of how well the fuel spontaneously combusts.
Okay.
The higher the cetane, the easier the fuel spontaneously combusts. And by spontaneous, I guess what I'm saying there is, in the case of a diesel, when the temperatures inside the combustion chamber rise because of the compression, a higher cetane will light off quicker than the lower cetane.
So kind of like octane and gasoline, essentially. Same effect.
Pardon? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Like it'd be like comparing like different fuel octanes, like in gasoline. 89 versus 91, some degree. At least that's how it's registering in my head.
Okay, you're on the right track, but you got to flip it around.
Okay.
In that octane, the higher the octane, actually, the less likely it is to spontaneously combust.
Okay.
Stability.
Stability.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Combustion
Makes sense.
stability.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
In a gasoline engine, you want the combustion event to begin with your spark plug and not with spontaneous combustion. So as compression ratios go up, as boost levels go up, you need higher octane to keep that from happening.
Okay. 10-4. I'm on the same page.
God, you sound foolish, Chris.
It was a good question.
It was legit a good question.
You didn't know.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Fool.
Okay.
So in a controlled test, where I'm going to imagine here that additive is going to help aid higher cetane levels, that will equivalent into potentially more power?
Potentially, yes. That being said, do you usually see a power gain with it? I can't say that we've done a test on a dyno where you could see. I mean, in theory, yes, but I think the amount is so small that you probably aren't going to be able to measure it. Is what I'm trying to say. Will it help cold starts? Yes. Will it help the engine run smoother? When it's cold? Yes. Will it help the fuel burn more completely? Yes. To say, yeah, you're going to get a measurable, whether that's on a dyno or with the other dyno that everyone's equipped with, I don't think you're going to see it. No.
Okay. That's interesting to me because you're describing a more efficient fuel burn by increasing your cetane rating. But yeah, okay, I get it. You're not actually increasing fuel quantity or air quantity,
right.
So you're probably not going to come out in more horsepower.
You're gaining overall efficiency of the fuel burning in the cylinder.
Like that.
So what does it do for like emissions then? I mean, let's talk about like a DPF equipped truck.
Well, that's a good question, Chris, because and we'll get a little bit more into our personal results, but your Volkswagen, no emissions, EGR, but like no DPF. And my BMW, DPF, EGR, DEF, the works. Yeah,
I think we
both.
Too.
Yeah, and we'll give you guys a little taste of this. Both had really good luck with cold starts. Yeah. In fact, such good luck that I was thinking if I triple my fuel additive dose, I probably won't even need glow plugs.
Wow. Okay.
Right, Randy?
You sound like a fool, Paul.
Perhaps every engine's going to be a little different, but yeah, it should improve the ease of cold start. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and listeners, I'm just joking. Please don't put in triple the amount of additive because you need glow plugs.
They heard you say it, Paul.
Please don't do that. I was just joking. Okay, no, but I like that. I get that. Randy, let's be real though. When guys are talking to me about fuel additive, it's because they want to talk about MPGs. Can we shoot this big old pink elephant in the room?
30 miles per gallon.
Minimum.
Yeah, no, not quite. When it comes to mileage, to be completely, again, honest and transparent, as we went through this, that wasn't something we were focused on. And as we got to the end, and towards the end, I should say, and we started doing in-vehicle testing, it's like, okay, I hope we get something. Hope we don't go backwards or anything like that. We shouldn't, in theory. What we've got in the, I'll say, limited testing that we've done, I mean, we've done a handful. Some of them have been for pretty long periods, like 6,200 rather, and 6,500 miles, with and without. That's probably the longest one we've done so far, and we've got more in process. And there's several smaller ones that we've done as well. But and these are so far have all been with emission-equipped trucks. We've got some without now in process. Don't have that data back yet, but the emission-equipped trucks, so they're running traps. We've seen over 10%. I mean, some as high as 11.5, and so indications are good that mileage improvement is real. Wouldn't put a name to a number yet, but preliminary indications are that it's maybe in the neighborhood of 10%.
Well, I mean, that's significant.
That's what I'm seeing. Yeah, 100%. So I was joking about how like I've never measured fuel mileage.
Yeah.
I think since I started working here, I've always lived so close to the shop that it didn't make sense to care. But now I pay a little bit of attention. I'm like a 30-minute ride back and forth, and it's all like 2 lanes. There's only probably a half-mile stretch that the speed limit's even 55. So I usually don't do more than 70, 75 miles an hour on the way to work. I'm just, everybody who knows me knows I actually drive like a grandma. I probably max out at like 45. But anyways, what I have noticed is I was sitting around like 18.5 to 19.6 are kind of my averages of where I was sitting on all stock. Done nothing to it. And then, with the additive, I was up to like 19.6 to like 20.2-ish. It's kind of right where I was sitting, so I'd say that's right in line. I would expect it to go up a little more if I would not let my car idle for 20 minutes before I drive it every day.
You like a warm vehicle. I
really do. I really do. What about you, Chris? What have you seen?
The mileage, I would say, for my car is staying consistent, but it's colder now, so I am letting the car idle more. My girlfriend won't even get in the car unless it's warmed up for 15 minutes. Like, at the TDI, it takes forever to warm up, but mileage-wise, stayed roughly the same, but I've definitely seen some improvements when it comes to the cold start. Yeah,
the cold start, that really is no joke. I really have been having really good, because I probably definitely do need 2 glow plugs in there.
Probably, definitely.
But I've noticed it's definitely not as harsh. It doesn't have that like really rough knock that my car usually does, even in the summer when I first start it. So it definitely has been operating smoother at idle and getting up to temp quicker. So that's been really nice. Randy, one of the last things I wanted to hit you on is winter blend. God, Chris, do you remember that 4500 Kodiak that I drove for a hot minute?
Yeah.
The tank on that is directly under the bed and completely exposed. So I had parked the truck outside back then. I still do.
He left an eighth of a tank.
In it.
Still does.
100% true. My car literally is on an eighth of a tank this moment in the parking lot.
It was 0 degrees last night.
Yeah, check. Well, I wanted to finish the test, and I didn't want to fill up before I came in. This is the end of that tank that I ran.
You're lucky that the thing started.
It took me 2 weeks to go through a tank of fuel.
That's impressive.
Yeah. But anyways, that tank is the only tank I ever had gel up because it sat outside through a polar vortex. I left an eighth of a tank, and it got to negative 20 with the wind chill. Woke up, truck would go a mile down the road, chug out, stop, starve itself for fuel. I ran probably way too much diesel 911, which we all know. Shout out to the fact that we've all tried it and had varied results. I tried a bunch of different stuff that I found at the gas station, right? So, like, does fuel additive prevent gelling if you have a high-quality additive? And then the second part of my question is, how the hell do I know what's a high-quality additive?
All right. Yes, an additive that's formulated for gelling should help. The way that our winter blend is done, you should have freeze. So there's 2 things that can happen. One is water in the tank can freeze. Once that freezes, probably about the only way to turn that around is to warm the truck back up. The other thing is that the fuel, the wax in the fuel, the paraffins will start to clump together the colder they get. And standard diesel fuel, if it's not treated, by treated I mean from the refinery, the distributors in the wintertime are required to treat it for cold weather. And there's really no standard for that. So it can kind of vary from station to station, and it's going to vary from latitude as well. So from north to south, the distributors are going to treat it different because they're basically just looking for it not to gel up in their general area. So that's another thing. But the waxes will essentially start to clump together. They're to make a bit of an analogy, the wax compounds themselves are formed they have a physical shape that's something like a bunch of them are like Velcro, and when it gets cold enough, they start clumping together. And so what the additive does is essentially fills in the Velcro so that they can't clump together, and it'll lower the point at which the gelling will start once the additive is in there and working. So if you blend it right, and with a typical base crude, we're down to about 65 low in terms of when that process will start. So that should get you through just about anything, at least in the lower 48 here.
That's such a cool analogy.
Yeah.
I actually get that. Okay, so it's like, I think we've all looked at gelling and kind of understand that, like, your fuel ends up building up like wax, and that's what gelling is, right? Like, we just call it gel, but it's really paraffin wax that's already in there.
Correct.
But I never thought about, like, how those particles look like under a microscope, and it sounds like that's what you're saying. Like, if you were to zoom in on one of those under a microscope, it would look like Velcro that has all these sticky pieces that want to connect to each other once it starts getting cold, and the additive actually kind of smooths that out so that they can't connect to each other. I love that. I actually get that in my head.
I understand that.
Yep. It's a rough analogy. A chemist might cringe at that analogy, but that's
if you're a chemist and you're listening to our show,
that's awesome.
Shoot me an email. I want to say thank you.
I thought that was a way to try to simplify it and get the picture across. But yes.
Nice. So, I mean, I was going to ask a question about that, and it pretty much summed that up. But I was going to ask, does the additive potentially, is it counterproductive to the fuel depending on what additive there is, right, for the different anti-gelling? But with the way that this was explained, the additive is going to work with pretty much any of the winter prepped fuel depending on where you're located in the country.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Correct. Whatever prep they've done to it, this will just make it better. It'll enhance it.
I love that.
I like
okay,
that.
And then second part of the question, we've all been at the truck stop, we've all been at the gas station, and you're like, man, I know my shit's going to gel up tonight if I don't put something in it. How do I know what's good?
That's tough. Based on what we've done in terms of looking at what are in all the different competitors, some are great at marketing, and they've been doing it for decades. They're in every truck stop, and when we went to test them in some of these areas, they were the worst ones.
What?
So it's tough. I can't see that there's a rule of thumb to be able to tell good from bad. You almost have to go on other people's experience. To be honest, I don't know how else to distinguish it. That or find people that have done their homework. That means the manufacturer, which is tough to say too, because some of them are very big brand name companies. So you could assume, they've been around forever. It must have done their homework. But in reality, those were some of the poorest performing ones that we tested.
And I kind of get that, because if you really pull back and you think about how technology works, and so often when we think about technology, I think about the two guys in the room both looking at their cell phones. But chemistry, I think, has that as well, and that's something that you had kind of alluded to at the top of the show, is when Exergy was developing this formula, you guys were bringing in elements that were brand new, that had never been used before in anybody's additive. But if you think about the brand that's been out for 30 years or whatever, pick a number, how often are they going in and doing the testing and spending 3 to 5 years of developing a new formula, as opposed to just saying, we already own this market, people already recognize our name, keep buying the stuff we've been selling you for years.
Right.
And never really, as a consumer, I think you got to pull back and you got to step back and you got to think about, like, what is best for my truck, not what is most popular on the shelf, right?
Yeah, so for starters, just so we're on the same page, I'm going through the show notes from this because my eyes
nobody
looking at
nobody at home would have known if I was telling the truth or not if you would have just got up and told me, what are you talking about? You're crazy, Paul. Like, you totally could have played that off.
You are, but so I'm looking at that. tanks.
Randy, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show today. I'm sure there's something that I should have asked that we haven't. Were there any other topics or pointers that you want to kind of cover at this time?
Just a couple. One, the winter formula is the same formula as our summer blend. It just has additives that address things needed in cold weather. In other words, all the improvements, all the benefits of the summer are in the winter. There's products out there that are formulated just for winter. This is not one of those. I think that's a big thing we want to make sure everybody understands. The next, it goes a little bit along with the conversation we just had in regard to some of the branding and marketing. Check out, or if you get time, do the math on what you're actually paying to treat one tank of fuel. You might be surprised at some of the major brands what they cost to treat a tank of fuel versus the treat ratio that ours is at. We've done the comparisons, obviously, to set the pricing, and I was shocked. I guess that's what I'm trying to say at what some additives were getting to treat one tank. So another heads up. There's a big difference there.
I don't understand. I buy the bottle, I pour it in the tank.
Well, there's ratios to how many gallons, Paul.
Yes, Chris.
All right.
Jesus. Sometimes I don't understand you.
Yeah, I know. I get it. You sound like my wife. Okay. Those are both really good points, because I certainly would not plan on standing in the gas station and going, what's the cost per tank?
No, I would look at the cost of the bottle.
Cost, right? And like, yeah, sure, I'll buy this one. Like that's as far as I would have thought it. That's a good heads up, man. That's some good consumer advice.
I'm thinking about that more in when you look at the cost per tank, and if there's more, right, that you have to add from a competitor or a third party, right?
Yeah.
How much more filler are you essentially putting in the tank, and they're just relying on their marketing and their presence in the industry?
I think we're just going to let that question hang. That's a good question. Randy, hey, man, we appreciate you taking so much time with our listeners today. Who do you want to give a shout out to?
Mainly, I guess, the guys internally here. It's not like we had the whole company working on it, but it did take a lot longer than we thought to bring this to market, and there was a lot of patience that was tried as we tried to get to that point. So thanks to them in regard to the topic today. And then our loyal customers over the years. You probably can tell we're not focused on marketing too heavily here at Exergy. We mainly rely on word of mouth and the quality of our product to sell itself. And over the years, the industry has been very good to us, and want to say thank you for that.
That's awesome, man. Randy, I want to say thank you again for taking your time out and talking with our listeners and educating Chris and I a little bit on this fuel additive topic. I think we're really excited. Chris, we already mentioned we've been running the additive now. I think I'm all the way through a tank of fuel. I think you're about halfway, three-quarters.
Yeah, halfway through.
We're going to keep running it, man. Like that's what I can tell our listeners, guys, is I've tried it. The results are there. I think it's a no-brainer. So if you're looking for it, they can actually, Chris, they can follow up with you if you want to get your hands on some Exergy additive.
Been starting to move through some cases and some bigger bottles and stuff. So, listeners, if you have any questions, send me an email, cmk@duramaxtuner.com, or call over at the shop, 815-568-7920, extension 2121.
Awesome. And Randy, if they want to find out more about you or follow along with Exergy Performance, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
At this time, it's probably best to call direct with any questions you have. We're going to try to improve our social media presence, also what we have out on the web. At the moment, though, if you have specific questions, best to call our performance line. It's 616-551-4330.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson
and Chris Emke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon. I know all the words you used, Chris, but I don't know if I have a great handle on what all those things actually are in the real
you're
world.
right.